to the Weekend Warriors Home Improvement Show, built by Parr Lumber. When it comes to big or small projects around the home, Tony and Corey have got the know-how and the answers to make your life just a bit easier. Here they are, your Weekend Warriors, Tony and Corey.
Hey, welcome to the Weekend Warriors Home Improvement Show podcast. I'm Corey Valdez.
I'm Tony Cookston.
Thanks for checking us out today. We've got a special guest in the studio with us. It's our very newest of the new Weekend Warrior special guest, Shannon Quimby.
Yes. Shannon Quimby, hi, how are you?
I am good, and I'm happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. I felt like, Corey, that you were going to say the newest member of the Weekend Warriors. But you kind of beat around that bush a little bit.
A little bit.
I mean, because here's the reason why. We extended an invitation to a celebrity to join us and be part of the Weekend Warriors, and she hasn't answered yet. So that's why Corey was beating around the bush. She hasn't actually agreed.
Well, I think she's agreed. Wouldn't you say you agreed, Shannon?
Yeah, I'm in. Easy peasy.
I think
easy decision.
I think it's. I mean, she's not like she's a honorary member. I think right is like a
Okay.
But well, we'd have to, because if she was more than an honorary member, we would have to take the logo, and then we would have to add Tony and Corey and Shannon.
I hear you.
And then where would we be?
I mean, not enough room right now.
Yeah.
She is. Anyway, she's part of the crew.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to be doing all kinds of stuff with her this year, and she's working on a huge project. So that's where we're going to be this year. You'll see a lot of our videos at her property. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to know about you. I think our viewers and our listeners want to hear about you, what your history is, your past, your experience. You've done some crazy stuff over the years.
I have. I definitely have. It all was started from basically if it was broken, we'd fix it. And if we couldn't fix it, we'd change it into something else. So it was a lifestyle from the get-go.
Yeah.
And we DIY'd. We were DIYing before DIYing was anything. We were before any of the RE words. It was just who we are as a family and what we did.
Yeah.
And that just progressed into my career, which is amazing. And, I remember when we were young, when we went to garage sales and estate sales, we didn't tell anybody. It was, it was like, oh, you're going to a garage sale, this and that, And my mother would find secondhand clothing and cut out labels that were high end and put them on our jeans. And so,
wow.
Yeah. And so we were reusing and recycling and upcycling before any of that was popular.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. It's interesting because what you just said is like the very definition of a Weekend Warrior.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's how we look at it. Anybody that's willing to learn how to fix up their own house, how to, fix things.
Make the most of what they have.
Right.
Make something out of nothing. All of those things. We talk a lot about, as Weekend Warriors, Corey and I talk a lot about our carbon footprint and, being responsible stewards of the earth and all of those things on a regular basis. How to simply just do things the way we would need to do them if we thought that there was a time clock on, our resources. And so as we do that, that's exact same thing that you've been doing, but from a different part of from a different part of the world. You just weren't here with us. If we would have got together 12 years ago, we'd have been,
talking about the same stuff.
We would have been the Three Musketeers
so
long ago.
Yeah. Well, and that just, it just kind of progressed. And, I started doing it growing up. I started doing it. I loved taking shop in high school, and I liked to build. And my grandfather had a workshop, and he built birdhouses. And my uncle built birdhouses, and his contract was with Disney World. And so,
wow.
So I was always in the workshop. And my dad had a workshop, and my mom was very creative. Plus, I think it's really crucial growing up is that my parents encouraged the creativity.
Yeah.
And, even if they saw possibly the end result that wasn't going to go in the direction, but, there wasn't a cap on that. And so if I was building something or hammering something. And even though if my dad told me to, hold the hammer a certain way and I wasn't, he knew what was going to happen, and, I'd have to learn the hard way. But that just kind of generated into what I do today, which it's kind of hard. I wear a lot of hats. But if you want to put it all in a pot, I would say I'm a salvage designer. Cut to the chase.
Right.
Yeah, that's an interesting name. I don't think I've ever heard that title before.
No, that's first. But I'll tell you what, I'm hearing you tell me that you came from a generation where your creativity was not stifled, but that was a generation where creativity a lot of times was stifled. So you kind of are a small percentage. You're the minority to come from that generation and be raised that way.
Yeah, and also, we didn't have a lot of money either. And so if it was broke, we couldn't just go out and buy it again. We couldn't replace it with something new. And so we were always trying to figure out what to do with it. And I like to tinker. When something's broken and I take it apart, I actually look at pieces differently than what their purpose was originally. And I get that question asked all the time, like, how did you think to do that or put that together? And I'm like, well, I don't see that bottle as just a bottle. I see it as something else. And I flip it around, I turn it upside down, I flip it over, I spin it. I just, change it all the time, think what else we could do with it.
I'll tell you what, I don't have that.
No,
I don't have that ability to look at something. I see these people all the time. They take stuff and they upcycle it, or that term, where they take things and they make it into other things. I don't have that brain. I have a very technical brain. When I see something, I see it for what it is. I don't look at it and say, I could use that in this way as this other thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not that good at that.
That's interesting. I was actually on your website and I was looking through all of the photos of all of the things that you've repurposed or upcycled, whatever it was in those instances, balusters from a handrail or legs from a chair that have turned into candle holders, or candelabras or whatever. And so much more amazing. I mean, photo after photo after photo of things that you've done, that you've created something great out of something old, something that was great, but in a different way and at a different time. And I was really enjoying that. What is your website? Just so we can share it with the listeners so they can go check out and see what I saw.
It's my name, ShannonQuimby.com. Easy
that
peasy.
That is very easy.
Yeah.
How many
Two
N's in Shannon?
Two N's, yes. SHANNON.
Oh, 3 N's, you mean?
3 N's.
3 N's.
Yeah.
Shannon
Quimby. Yeah. Like Ramona, like the books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Quimby. Yeah, ShannonQuimby.com. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, that website is great. There's such a depth of really good stuff on there. I really enjoyed it. I found myself, I was probably looking at your website for an hour, just going through all of the tabs and looking at all of the stuff. And of course, I was preparing for this conversation, and I wanted to be able to be a contributor, right?
Were you at work doing this, Tony?
I was on the clock. I was
just wondering.
Definitely getting paid to browse your website. Which,
research.
Yeah.
Tony's boss is listening right now.
But there was a lot of really good stuff on there. Also, Corey and I discovered the other day that you wrote a book.
Yeah, I did.
And that you are officially an author.
I am.
Another one of the amazing things that you have on your list of accomplishments. What is the name of your book?
Shannon Quimby, Color, Create, Decorate. Yeah.
Color, Create, Decorate.
Yeah, that was the first one. I've been a contributor to 3 others. The author is Joanne Palmisano, and she's written 3 books all about salvage, decorating, and decor and design. And I was honored to be a contributor to those 3 books of hers. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and the thing is, I just kind of fell into this. I love, like you said, I like building and creating and redoing and such. And I opened up an antique store. And I called it Quimby's Arts and Antiques. So I had a little leadway there. So if I built something and put it in, they'd say, well, that's not antique. I'm like, nope, it's not. It's art.
It's art.
Yeah. So it's Quimby's Arts and Antiques.
Covered your bases there.
Yeah, I did. I totally did. And then I started doing antique shows. I'd haul it all in. I had a 7240 Conaline 3 on the tree. And I'd go do a show. And then one day a photographer came up and looked at my booth and said, I really like how you designed your, styled your booth. Is this any representation of your home? And I said, yeah, I just took that bench out of the kitchen this morning. So they're like, hey, well, we'd like to come and take a look at your home and shoot your home. And I said, I don't know what that means, shoot your home. And well, we'd like to take some photographs, maybe get it published. And I said, published in what? So I was so naive. I didn't know anything about this. And so I said, all right. And they did. And then they were there for a day and they took a whole bunch of photos and everything. And then it ended up in Country Living magazine and a couple other magazines. And then it was about 2 years later. And I told you I had an antique store. And this is so great, you guys. This is so awesome. So I'm dating myself. So I come into work and I'm hitting the answering machine. This is early 2000s. I'm dating myself. I told you. I'm in the answering machine, and there's this message, and it says, "Hi, Shannon. This is so and so from." And so I'm writing it down. Writing down. This is so and so from Homes and Gardens Television. We saw your home in Country Living magazine. We're interested in coming and doing a segment about you. Give us a call. So I'm writing this down. Homes and Gardens Television. In the meantime, I've done a lot of local television. I've done, and I thought, oh, this is probably some local TV. And I'm writing down Homes and Gardens. Oh my gosh. This is HGTV. HGTV just left me a voicemail. Holy schmoly, right? And I'm all by myself.
It was real.
I was like, oh my gosh. So he calls back. So I'm just shaking in my boots, like, what? And so when they said they saw my kitchen in this magazine, that magazine came out, it was 2 years ago. It wasn't like on the stands.
Right.
That had been 2 years.
Wow.
And so
they were recycling old stuff.
They were upcycling.
They were, yeah.
Upcycling.
Mm-hmm. And so I call him back, and I get his voicemail, and your office voice. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I go like this. I go, yeah. So I listen to him, and it's my turn, and I go, yeah, hi, Craig, so-and-so. Hi, Craig. Yeah, this is Shannon Quimby from Quimby's Arts and Antiques. I got your message about possibly being on Homes and Gardens Television. My answer is, duh, HGTV, call me.
I love it.
I guess you got to be who you are.
That's right.
That's right.
He calls me back within 5 minutes. He's laughing. And once again, dating myself, he's laughing. He goes, Shannon, he goes, do you have a fax machine? And I said, yes. He goes, okay, I just edited that clip on my answer machine, sent it to marketing, and we would like to use that in between commercials. Duh, HGTV. And we'd like to send a release over so you can sign that. So that was just a sidebar. And I said, sure. And anyway, next thing they came out, and we'd filmed a segment on one of their shows. And I guess it got really strong ratings. They called me back. They asked me to be a regular on the show. And so I was. And what I did is I would take like a piece of like a fence board, and I would change it and make it into 3 different things. Or I would take a light fixture that was busted, and I would make it into something else. And that was the whole premise. And I was doing this way before anybody else was doing this.
Yeah.
And and then that led to another show on HGTV, and then that led to getting a column in a magazine. And I wrote for the Oregonian for 10 years in the Homes and Gardens section, and it just kind of kept evolving. And so now I've worked with Better Homes and Gardens, with Meredith Publications and HGTV, and all the big brand mags for nearly 25, 30 years.
Wow. And now she's stepped up.
Yeah.
To be on our...
Now you've joined the big leagues.
That's right.
Our tiny podcast. So we just actually hit a milestone on our YouTube channel. We hit 250,000 views.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know that Corey's mom and my mom had enough time to listen to the thing that much.
Truly.
Or to watch. Yeah. So basically our parents are nonstop, YouTubing our stuff.
I know we always say, when we were on the radio, we would always say that we had 3 listeners: my mom, Tony's mom, and then some lady in Washington.
Yeah, some lady in Washington who shows up at the Home and Garden show and wants a picture with us.
Well, then that one guy in Spokane too.
Yeah, that's right,
one
Jason.
guy.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I have a couple of those.
Yeah. But no, anyway, we're glad to have you on, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Did you grow up in Portland? You grew up in the Portland area?
I'm a native Oregonian. I grew up all over Oregon.
Really?
Yeah, all over Oregon.
And then you moved to California?
I was in California about the last 2 years. Yeah, I sold the last house, which was called the Rex Project, and it was one of the first houses in the nation to be built without a dumpster.
That's incredible.
Was huge. We called it the Rex Project because it stood for Reuse Everything Experiment. Because what we were doing, nobody had done before, which was there was a house that was on the property that was falling down, and we deconstructed it and infused all those materials of that house into the new construction, and then we infused all the leftover materials of the new back into the new. So we never had a dumpster on site.
What'd you do with all the asbestos?
There wasn't any asbestos. That was a lucky thing. Seriously. No. We had to keep it real because we were this was on I think it was on Coin. It was on Coin. It was on KGW, all the local networks. So I had to keep it real because we didn't know what we were getting into when we started deconstructing that. Like how much we did have lead paint. So what it cost to strip the lead paint versus actually getting more wood for the siding, the original shiplap siding. So I had to keep it real cost-wise. And we didn't know where we were going. Is this going to be cost effective? Is it not? Is it going to cost me more money? We didn't know from start to finish.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't imagine having to reuse everything in any remodel that I've ever done.
Well, I'll tell you what, but
most of the stuff I've ripped out is garbage.
She did some very genius stuff that people would not think about. I'm just going to highlight one thing. She pulled some old sheetrock out of the house from before.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. She pulled some old sheetrock out of the house from before and put it in the ground and added that gypsum into the dirt, which actually is nutrients that the dirt uses to be more
very interesting.
More composty.
Yes, it was. And
composty?
Yeah, that's a technical term.
So now that you're part of the crew, you got to realize Tony makes up words.
You know what?
I don't know if you knew that.
Thank God I'm right in there with you because half the things I don't even know what they are. So I have my own lingo. Yeah.
You guys are two peas in a pod then.
Yeah. Composting. That was genius.
Well, we had that tested because that had paint on it. So we had to make sure there was no lead paint on that. And we were lucky that there wasn't. So, yeah. And that, a lot of that process is I didn't know, okay, what am I going to do with the old, sheetrock? What am I going to do with the lath? Yeah. It was a 1920s house with lath and plaster. What am I going to do with lath? I had so much lath. And I discovered that could be a rain screen. In the Pacific Northwest, it rains a lot. So between the framing and the siding of the house, instead of spending $2,000, on a fiberglass or a plastic rain screen, we used the lath.
Yeah.
And that saved me about $1,500.
Yeah. Wow.
It did have all those teeny tiny little nails in it. And so what we did is we had some, some homeless people. They were regulars in our neighborhood. We all took care of them. And so they'd come by and we'd pay them and they'd sit on the side and we'd feed them.
Pull those little nails out?
And they'd pull those nails out. And and they loved it. And,
that's awesome.
And so we reused that. So it was.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. We sell a lot of strips of plywood that we use for rain screen, and being able to repurpose lath that was coming out of the old house for that's exactly what I'm talking about. Some genius things that you did during that project. I just loved that video, and that video was only scratched the surface of all of the things that you had to have gone through in order to be where you were. I mean, I saw you standing in front of that structure with all of the materials stacked behind you from the house after it was down. And you were like, remember that house? It's right here. And you had tree limbs that were stacked in there and you had wood and my goodness. I was having no inclination of this before. I was super proud just in that moment when I was like, this woman has done something amazing.
Well, I appreciate
watching that video. That was great.
All right, I gotta tell you a little behind the scene though on that. I gotta come clean on that. So we deconstructed the house. Thank goodness it was only 660 square feet, so it was small. And so we deconstructed that and we put everything in piles in the yard. We put the brick over here. We put metals here. We had wire over here. Yeah, so it was all piles and everything. And I was so proud of that. Look at us, And then my foundation guy shows up and he takes one look at the wherever the piles was, and he goes, "So where are we building the house?"
You're like, yeah, we're gonna have to move all this stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's right. The house is a little bit bigger than the 660 square. Oh man. So that's why we got 2 containers. And then we had to reload. So everything that we had deconstructed and put in the piles, then we had put in the container. So I got to come clean on that. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. But once again, live and learn. Live and learn. I mean, if we had to deconstruct scrape that house, that was going to cost me, I saved $5,000 by just deconstructing and using those materials again.
Right.
Yeah. Instead of just wiping it away.
Yeah. Dumpster fees are expensive. I mean, dump fees in general, the dumpster itself, plus the dumping, and all the stuff. That's a huge part of budgets that I think a lot of people overlook.
I would say that Corey is the number one person who is always looking for that exact cost. Every time I say, I got a project, and he's like, how much are you going to spend? And I say, I'm going to do this thing. And he's like, did you figure a dumpster? Because you're going to need a dumpster. And that's going to cost you $500 probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you have to, if depending on how big it is, maybe it costs you $1,000. That is a real expense, a very real expense.
Mm-hmm. People miss that. But again, if you do something like that, I mean, I would try to think about the last project I did. The big project I did was my kitchen.
Okay.
And Tony and I was telling her a little bit about that earlier. And I'm just trying to envision in my head what could have been reusable in that project.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I mean, not much.
No,
honestly, not much.
We pulled a lot of stuff out of there that had been reused the last time.
Right. They had the main beam that was holding up the entire second story of my home was flitched together garbage.
Yeah,
it was like little pieces of wood.
Yeah.
Nailed together in this section to there. It was like 4 pieces wide. And it wasn't bolt, they had a couple bolts in it, the beam, the post. It was all just nailed together junk. I couldn't believe it.
Oh,
the second story of the house.
Junk. I don't think it would have been junk. I probably could have turned that into something. You never know.
I saw this picture, Corey. You're gonna love this. I saw this picture on her website. And she's it's on the side of the road, right? The picture, and you see this pile of materials leaning up against a do not cross sign on the side of the road. And it's looking like some pretty old-ish stuff, right? And then right next to it is a picture of this super cute little office space in the house with a desk and a chair and, and a decorative piece on the wall with a bulletin board kind of thing. And she made that out of that pile of stuff. I mean, I just was looking at that thinking, unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
That was a twin headboard. Nothing fancy, just and there was not, the rest of the bed wasn't there. There was just a twin headboard. Yeah. Yeah. And not only did I do that was been published. So I did that. I turned that into 3 things. So I turned that into an office organizer. I turned that into I changed it out and put a mirror on the back of it and turned it into like a vanity space and to hang jewelry. And then the last one is I turned it into a mudroom where I put hooks on it and boards and everything so the kids to hang stuff
like
up.
Like a coat rack or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
an organizer.
Awesome.
I have a coat.
Let alone many coats
that would necessitate a coat rack.
Is a line out of a movie. Something else that Corey and I do way more than we should probably. Yeah. We quote lines out of movies.
Every time I hear the word rack, I always think of the Wayne's World, where his girlfriend gives him a gun rack. Uh-huh. He's like, I don't even have a gun, let alone many guns. That would necessitate a gun rack.
What are you, mental? Yeah.
Anyway.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. I was just thinking about that because that is a unique skill set. Like I said, being able to look at something and to convert that into something else, I think it takes creativity. You got to have the creativity to be able to look at something like that.
Now, so that's just one. I'm just going to, can I just do this? Can
What's
I just
that?
keep saying things about you while you're sitting
Sure.
right in front of me?
No more.
Like we could ask her and she could tell us, but I want to say this other thing that I recognized about her genius. So this is the one thing that you just recognized that's genius. Now, couple that with the ability to take the thing that she made that is really cool now from stuff that was not, and then to decorate it with things that bring it together to make one look. You had a bench. It was an old bench. It was all washed up, right? And then you painted it yellow. But then you draped over the corner of it, like a blanket maybe that someone would have on their lap when they were sitting on the bench outside. And a potted flower maybe that matched the same. And I was like, the picture was amazing. So you created the picture that someone might frame and hang on their wall.
That's correct.
You created the bench that someone would sit on. You added the things that they would use while sitting there. All of those things, and then not even to mention the fact that you upcycled the bench to start with. So, I mean, it's not just one or two things. There's so much going on in your brain. I'm kind of scared a little. I feel like you should be charging me, or you should be charging me to ask you these questions and learn more about what's going on.
Well, that's so funny you said that, because when I just came over earlier today and Corey had mentioned in the kitchen, and he was mentioning, we're thinking about redoing this fireplace, and, you design, and so I wanted to pick your brain. And I gave him about 2 seconds to finish the sentence, and I dove right in.
I know. She's like, we should do this. You should move this. You need to move the piano over to that room and this and that. And I was like, wait for my wife to get home.
Yeah. He literally said that. He goes, wait till my wife gets. I'm like, oh, this is easy peasy. This is easy stuff. No, for me, no problem.
I just do what I'm told.
One thing that I'm very excited about now is that the Weekend Warriors have a designer on retainer now. We can just make a phone call and be like, Shannon, we need some advice here.
Yeah.
That's the one thing we've never had.
No
design eye at all. We've been missing
I can
that.
design, structural, mechanical things. My brain is just very mechanical. I think about things, three-dimensionally and how things go together. I can't look at something and think of any other way. I don't know. I just don't have that brain.
That's okay. That's what makes everything, when you're building a house or building a kitchen, we're all experts at what we're doing, and, so you gravitate towards expertise. And so it's okay.
Yeah.
That's part of the recipe. It's part of a good crew. You wouldn't want 7 of me on one job, because we'd never get it done, because we would be talking about how much we could do instead of this. Oh, I think we should do that. Well, what about that? Oh, that's a great idea. What if we did that? Yeah, that's super. Okay, well, we only got one, so which one we should do? I don't know. We should do them all. Nope, we can't. So it's good that you have that balance. Yeah.
There's a funny cartoon that my kids watched called Gravity Falls. You ever see that?
Uh-uh.
It's great. It's actually really, really funny. But there's an episode where he somehow is able to, the main character, the boy, is able to photocopy himself. And he's like, there's this whole scene where there's like 10 or 12 of himself, and he's like arguing about everything. And he wants to kiss this girl or dance with this girl or something, and then they all argue about who gets to dance with her. And he's like, we're all me. It's just super funny. Made me think of that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We definitely wouldn't want 7 of anybody.
No.
On a job
He
site.
was just going to say Tony. Right before he said anybody, he was going to say Tony, which is okay. I am a lot. One of me is a lot. I mean, I can't imagine 2 or more would be dangerous.
I mean, you have pretty strong hands.
If I was multiplied like Michael Keaton in Multiplicity, I would have to send my clone to the other side of the planet just to keep us both alive. If we were in the same place, we would, we would explode or something.
Well, that's ironic that you said that, because what I do is, and it's more common now, if you'll see people, they're DIYing and they're changing things and they're upcycling all the time. But I've done it like for 25, 30 years. And so I had the subcontractors and the contractors on the job saying, you can't do that. And they'd say that costs too much money. And then I would always follow up and go, how much? How much would that cost? Well, it's just, you can't do it. Really? How come? And because can't was a swear word in our household. We were not allowed to say the word can't. It was not. We were not. And so how we could change it out. So I had many of the same mindset on job sites. especially the last project that I did, where we are literally reusing and recycling and upcycling. And we were even on tour. The house was on so many tours. And at one point we were in framing stage, and we had all the vendors that wanted to be on. They had little tables in framing of the house. And I had contractor after subcontractor, and everybody coming in and like, oh, well, this is just going to cost too much money, and you're not going to be able to do this. I'm like, dude, I'm standing in it. We're doing it.
We're here now.
We're doing it. Oh, well, it's going to cost you too much money. And I had that thrown at me every single time. I was like, well, and I'd always say, maybe it will. But let's find out. Let's find out, because we don't know what the answer is now.
Well, I think a lot of contractors in situations like that, it might not necessarily cost more, but it would cost them more time, to have to figure out how to reuse something. I've gotten those calls before, like, where can I buy a old barn wood? That's like a classic one. I get that all the time. People call and ask where they can buy, a beam out of an old building. Like, I don't know. I sell new lumber. You know what I mean? So a contractor, I guess, probably hearing that would resort to that. They'd be like, I don't know. I don't, that's not my skill set,
Really good point is that the lumber that we saved from the 1920 house was true 2x4s, 1x8s, 1x6s. And so even though I reused all that lumber, I had to pay the labor to cut that down to the size that we use now.
Right.
Nominal size, yeah.
Exactly. And so, so that was a cost. So I had to keep that real. It's like, oh, well, I saved in actual lumber, but I had to pay for more labor to cut it down.
You also saved because you didn't have to throw it away.
That's right.
There's an interesting law, actually, that I'll have to look this up. But there was a law that went into place that actually helped people like you reuse old lumber. Because nowadays, lumber has a required stamp. It has to have, by a lumber mill, a stamp of its grade and its quality and its structural ability to hold up your house.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And people would want to use, when that craze came in, it was like a fad. I don't know, not really a fad, but it was like this craze of everyone wanting an old barn beam.
Let's call it a movement. It was a movement.
There you go. A movement. They wanted to bring in a 10x10 from this building, and it's strong enough.
Yeah.
But it didn't have a stamp. So you legally weren't allowed to use it in new construction.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do it. So somewhere along the line, they actually created a law or made pass something that allowed people to do it as long as it met certain criteria.
Which is smart, because material from those older years...
Oh, yeah, way stronger.
Way stronger than what we're growing today.
Like Douglas fir that we use in the Pacific Northwest, on the old growth that you see in these homes that were built in the teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, the rings, the tightness of that lumber, it had a certain value of strength, and then during like the 70s or 80s, they had to go back and redesign and re-engineer, come out with new engineering for lumber and lower its quality, or its strength.
Yeah. There's a show on something, History Channel maybe, or something now, called Barnwood Builders.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys deconstruct. These are period barns.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about, 1800, 1900.
Like tobacco barns.
Like old, old. And then they take those big timbers, they test them to make sure that they're solid and not, have rot in them, and that they're still strong. And then they turn them into log homes.
Mm-hmm.
And they do amazing work. I mean, unbelievable, super cool stuff.
Yeah, you can't really buy better wood than that old growth timber.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I mean, you don't really want to go harvest it either now.
Right.
You can't really, anywhere legally, I don't think.
Sure.
Harvest really old growth timber
protecting
anymore.
those old growth timbers now.
That's why I get people call in sometimes and they want, on some of these newer homes, you'll see huge timbers. I mean, 8x20s, 8x14, like these big timbers.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when they get big enough, you have to go out and source it. You can't just, it's not sitting anywhere.
No.
And like they physically have to go find a tree big enough to cut that out of for you. And sometimes people don't understand that, you know. That's where a lot of the engineered wood has come into play these days with glue lam and LVL.
Right.
It doesn't look as nice,
Right.
but I'll tell you what though, Parr Lam by Weyerhaeuser is one of the coolest products you'll ever see. They take strands of wood,
Mm-hmm.
PSL stands for parallel strand lumber, and they smash it in together with resin, and it has a really cool look to it. And you can polyurethane it or epoxy coat it. If you've ever been to an REI,
Yes.
they use a ton of it there
Yes.
on like their stairs.
It's beautiful.
It kind of
Yeah,
looks like
super cool.
It kind of looks like wormy wood.
Wormwood.
Yeah.
I mean, it has these little sort of round,
Yeah.
you know,
Strands.
Yeah, strands. So
The strands
it's pretty
are-
cool
are
looking,
long, yeah.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of old wood, you have got a new project. The thing that is
Oh yeah, we got to get into that.
pending. We really want to talk about the new project that's coming up. I mean, really,
Yeah.
you're on site. Well, I'm going to just let you tell the story. You bought a piece of property
I did.
in a new place,
I did.
and you're about to do a bunch of work there. Tell us about where you're at now and what is coming up.
Where am I at now? So yeah, so I took over 2 years to look for a property, and it's out in wine country, and it's a 1/4 acre. It's commercially zoned, so this is why I'm able to do.
Oh, it
this.
is it?
Yes,
Okay.
it's commercially zoned.
Okay,
1/4 acre. It's in McMinnville. Okay.
beautiful
Um,
town.
It's a currently on site. It's a 1911 bungalow, just your classic Pacific Northwest bungalow,
Mhm.
which is near and dear to my heart. I love older homes. And then there is a detached garage on the other end of the property, and it's tiny, tiny. I don't know what vehicle back in 1911 that you could even
It was a
get.
horse.
Yeah,
It's probably a horse.
seriously,
A horse and carriage.
horse garage. I don't know, but
Horse without the carriage.
seriously, just the carriage. Yeah, that's it. But so the plan is to currently that bungalow is a class 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Has unfinished basement, and it has a upstairs that's never been finished. Well, part of it's been finished, but not to code. And so the plan is to remodel that into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and then extend the garage so I can get my 66 Chevy truck into the
Oh
garage.
yeah.
Extend the garage, and then build 3 other small, similar bungalow style homes. 2 of them single level, and then one looks almost kind of like a barn structure behind the main bungalow. So that'll be a 2-story, and that will have a 1-bedroom above it. And I want, guys, I want to create community. I want to build relationships. In the last 7 years, I've lost a lot of family, and it's been a long journey. Ironically, today is an anniversary of somebody that's near and dear, closest to my heart, had passed away.
Oh.
And so that was something I wanted to do. I wanted to bring families together, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know the plan, but I'm so excited about this. I bought this property about 8 months ago, and I'm gonna put the Q stamp on it, and we're gonna recycle and reuse. There's like you, Corey, you're saying, like all the little wood scrap pieces. I'll probably turn that into art piece, because there's going to be wood scrap pieces. There already is. There's stuff I found, because the family lived there. The couple lived there for over 50 years.
Wow.
And they left it pretty clean. But I've already found some treasures in there, and some are like, whoa. Okay, yeah, we'll bury that in the yard. Yeah. That's a critter that will go. Yeah, that will become dust. But yeah, so that's the journey, and I'm so excited, you guys, because we get to document it.
Yeah.
The 3 of us get to document this together from the very beginning, and to be able to have that reality, and Corey, you were saying, people reach out to you, where do I get this? How do I do this? From a homeowner standpoint of how to remodel and how build, from a contractor's standpoint, from a vendor's, there's always a gap. A homeowner always asks, how come that costs so much? How come it's taking so long? Why isn't anybody doing anything? And then on the flip side, the contractor is doing just the opposite, working their tail off, getting things on transport, resourcing materials, trying to find the best deal, getting the crews on site when they need to be.
Yeah.
And and I've been remodeling and designing and working with contractors and architects for many, many years. And I always tell other homeowners when they hire me, I go, we're a team. Remember this. You hired this team. We are a team. It does not need to be a nightmare. It doesn't need to be. And also,
it's easier said than done, though.
But it's short term, though. Think about it. Your kitchen, gorgeous. I walked right in there. It's beautiful. Okay. It's going to get finished. It will get finished. It will get done. And a lot of times I think a homeowner just doesn't have the concept of time and space of how long things will get, but it always does get done.
Right. Yeah, my kitchen took 8 months.
Yeah.
8 months.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we have this conversation with our listeners on a very regular basis. We talk about realistic expectations on the job site. We talk about how contractors are doing everything that they can to manage this job while also managing other jobs, and that they want success for your project as much as you do. But I think managing expectations is very important, that the homeowner go in looking for a relationship with the contractor and the designer, if there's a designer. If you go in there looking for a relationship and you open yourself up to hear what they have to say and you look for ways to find common ground, I think all too often our homeowners that are hiring contractors and designers have a preconceived notion that contractors are crooks and designers are crazy. Now, I don't believe that. Nobody, we don't believe that, but they go in with a preconceived notion because of things that they've read in articles or seen, And so they have a worst case scenario going on in their brain, and they go in and they think, I have to protect myself, I have to protect my money, I have to protect my vision, and in order to do that, I have to keep my walls up. But the only way it's going to work is if you go in there to meet with the contractor and the designer, open to a relationship, and allow them to, allow them to bring you into the team, and then you have a team. When you have a team, everybody's working towards the same goal. And that is where the success is, always. Corey and I talk about this all the time. It seems, like you said, easier said than done. Mm-hmm. It seems like a simple concept. But
well, we talk about managing expectations a lot. And homeowners, I think HGTV, has been the culprit. It's a great it's a great show. We all did it.
It's a double-edged sword.
We all watched HGTV like crazy through the 2000s and 2010s. It was the greatest channel on TV.
Yeah.
But the problem is it has created unrealistic expectations for many people. They think that a remodel takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Or half an hour.
Yeah, or half an hour or an hour. And, they think that they can do it for $5,000, because that's what they do on TV. But unless you're willing to put on the tool bags and learn, you're not going to get it for $5,000.
Right.
And that's where Tony and I have been able to do projects in our homes. The amount of work that I've put in and Tony's put in at my house, I would never have been able to afford it. Never. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a fun thing to do. And
I love it. I love the journey. I love tearing it apart, and I love sketching it out, and seeing where it's going to go and how it's going to land. And there will, especially with older homes, guaranteed there's going to be surprises. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Out in McMinnville, it's moves slower. So, the committees don't meet like they do here in Multnomah County. They meet very, once a month, or a couple of times a month. And so that process is going to take longer. But, I guess I'm one of the odd ones because I love the journey. I love the journey of taking something that, and I can't wait, you guys show up. You're going to walk into that kitchen and that bathroom, which was, quote, remodeled, and you're going to be like, wow, this is, and because I can already see the finished product. I literally can see it in my head. And I'm purposely making myself live there uncomfortable. I moved in and it's just been like less than 2 months. I have barely unpacked. I have one room that's completely full of stuff. I have done basically nothing because, we start to get complacent. Even something little like painting a room. Mm-hmm. If you move in and you get all set up, it's like, oh yeah, I'll paint that. And then 2 weeks becomes 2 months, then comes 2 years, becomes
20 years.
Yeah. So I'm purposely, when I walk in that bathroom, going, man, this is ugly. Man, and I don't touch it.
Yeah, don't do it.
And I'm a designer, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, the sponge applique still needs to stay in the 3 colors of like horrific green, and
Tony and I have talked about that before too, because we try to do a show every year called Cost versus Value, and it's kind of one of those things that you've spent money on to get something done because you want it done, or you've spent money on it because you're trying to get value out of it. And whenever you spend money on your home, you're not necessarily getting 100% return on that investment. It's actually, there's hardly anything that you could spend money on in your home that you will get 100%. You'll get higher. There's higher than others.
Correct.
You can get into the 80s and even 90% of the money that you spent, unless you do it yourself. If you do it yourself, that's a different story. You're in it. You're spending your own money. You're spending your own time learning. Then you'll get the money back out of it. But some of these projects that are in there, if you focus too much on getting the return on your investment, I feel like a lot of people do this. They won't spend money on something because it's too expensive. But then they live there for 20 years and go, man, my house is really outdated. I'm not going to be able to sell it. So then they go and spend $100,000 fixing up their house just to give it to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to do that. If I'm going to move into a house and it needs something done, I'm going to try to get it done as soon as possible so that we can enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And create the space that you love.
Right.
You do hear a lot. It's like, oh, well, that's not good for resale. And I'm like, well, I'm not reselling it right now. I'm living in it.
Yeah.
And I've had homes where one time the stair treads, they showed up, and the flooring guy, he's like, oh, we got a problem here, Quimby. I was like, what? He goes, I thought this was an enclosed staircase. It's not an open staircase, so the treads are too short. And he goes, so we gotta return them. I was like, no. And again, I'm not gonna do that. He goes, well, the treads are too short. I said, hold on here. And so I go out to my car, and I come back in. My son was 6 at the time, and big into Hot Wheels. And I said, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I said, we're gonna build out the baseboard. We're gonna build out the baseboard, and we're gonna build a Hot Wheel track. And whatever that space is that is too short in the treads, that's what we're gonna do. And then my Finnish carpenter's in the background. He's like, sweet! Oh my God, that's awesome! Yeah. So literally, so down the staircase is a Hot Wheel track, and then it was 3 floors. And then the flooring guy goes, oh sweet, because the treads are even shorter going to the 3rd. Can we have a 2-lane track? I said,
2-lane track, nice.
That's hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, and guess what? For resale. Oh my God, it was one of the best things for resale, to show that, and it was a family and the kids and like the Hot Wheels going down the side.
Yeah.
And from a designer standpoint, what did I do? I painted it the same color as all the baseboard trim, so it wasn't, an orange Hot Wheel track.
Sure. Yeah.
You didn't even notice what it was.
I never would have thought of that. Never.
It's very interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
another show that we try to do every year, sometimes every other year, outdated design trends. You know, like faux sponge prints on the walls in the bathroom.
Tuscan kitchens.
In a sort of, rust-colored orange.
Vessel sinks.
Pea green.
Yes. No, vessel sinks are out, man.
I know.
They're out.
I know.
Tony had one in his house. I gave him so much crap for so long for putting a vessel sink. And you put it in when it was still popular.
Okay.
But it was at the end. You know what I mean? It was like it had ridden its time out. And I was like, because I'm one of those people that if I do something in my home, I'm very conservative on design typically because I want it to be timeless. I just want it to last as long, as long as possible. Mm-hmm. I try not to jump on some of those trends. And, we did put a farmhouse sink in, but, those are still cool, right?
Yeah. There's trends and then there's classic. there's furniture, Adirondacks, and outdoor Adirondack chairs, right? Never go out of style.
Right.
So there's some things that they're not trendy. It's a classic design that will stay forever and ever.
Yeah.
And but finishes, colors, hardware, black. Everything was black. Now you're going into metals, into metallics, and you're seeing the golds, and you're seeing the roses, and
brass.
And brass is coming back, and brush brass, antique brass, and so that's all going into. Yeah, I don't follow the trends either. I've never done that with design. I just go with what I like, and then I'm reusing. My past dining room chandelier was all the beer and wine bottles that I found in Laurel Hedge. That when we were taking out the Laurel Hedge because we lived a block from the park, and so that Laurel Hedge had been there for 30 years, and we found some treasures in that thing when we were cutting down that Laurel Hedge. And of course, I kept the Laurel Hedge. We turned that into garden furniture, but. And so I made beer and wine bottles chandelier, and
Funny.
this was way before anybody else had done that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that got published over and over again. French Glamour, for crying out loud, flew over and published that. Took shots of that. They flew over from France, and shot that.
Maybe you started that trend.
Maybe I did.
You might have.
Might have. Yeah.
But we should do that show definitely with you. That would be fun.
That would be a blast. Yeah. We had some really high points to the first time we did that show. We spent a lot of time putting it together.
We made it jokes.
We did like this. If you have more popcorn ceiling in your house than the local movie theater has on the floor, it might be time for an update.
That's right.
Or we said, let's see, if you have more bright brass in your house than the local high school marching band, it might be time to update.
Clever.
It was a great show. We had like 50 things, and we had a good time with it. We had a really good time with it.
Yeah, we're super dorks.
We've tried to recreate that show a dozen times, but we can't put it together.
Well, we just need, time.
Yeah.
Who has time?
No time.
Well, that's so speaking of time, I can't wait for you guys to come out and see the place, and as you go walking through the house for the first time, and then I'm going to point like, I want to do it, and I want to do that, and did it, and it'd be, I just can't wait to get your feedback.
Yeah.
And, from a technical, right, Corey, like this, I'm technical. I see it black and white and how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And, or that's going to be a challenge. Or that's probably going to take a lot more money than you thought it would, or time, or we're going to have somebody that's going to have to, I don't like to say think out of the box because I have this line that says I never think out of the box because I never had a box to begin with. So I'm looking forward to getting your guys' feedback on that.
Well, sometimes, you're confined in certain applications. You said this house particularly is on the historic registry.
No, resource. So there's a difference. So the registry means that, I can't do anything physically altering the exterior at all. And even the garage. If that garage was a leaning tower of yuckness, and if it was on the historical registry, I couldn't touch it. I'm on the historical resources.
Oh, okay.
So I can, if I wanted to do anything exterior, like add a shed dormer, or like my plan is to extend the garage back, I have to have approval through the historic committee, and it has to be So the materials I use, so it had to be the same roofing material. It had to be similar to the same siding. If we can't find the siding, something that is acceptable and approved through the historical committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You know, I grew up in Flint, Michigan, and there is a part of that town, it's actually called Carriage Town. You drive into Carriage Town, and they call it that because a lot of the houses had carriage houses where they would keep the horses in carriage. And it's so sad because all of those houses are on the historic, I don't know if they're on the, I think they're on the historical registry. And like, I remember when I lived there, there was houses that were literally falling down and people could not afford to fix them up.
Right.
Because they wanted, you had to put wood windows in. You had to use real slate tile for the roofs. You know, you'd drive through and you would see, you know, tarps everywhere because people couldn't afford the $50,000 to put a new roof on the house that's valued at $20,000.
Right, right.
You know?
Yeah.
It was just so sad. And I feel like
misplaced management there.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, the historic registry, there's a lot of bureaucracy. You know what I mean? And I don't know if there's anything you can really do about it. Especially in a town like Flint, Michigan.
Yeah, true. You know, I understand why, you know, but it does, you have a lot of barriers.
Right.
And this was on this particular project, this property that I bought, I did do my due diligence before I paid for it. You know, before I bought it, it's like, okay, what are my limitations? What can and cannot do? Which I am learning still. You know, my learning curve is straight up rocket ship. And, you know, I mean, discovered that I have one tax lot, but it's been discovered I got 2 lots. Yeah. Didn't know that when we bought it.
Interesting.
So I have 2 lots. Okay. Well, the garage is on one lot and the house is on the other.
Wow.
I can't because I wanted to remodel the garage first and then put all my stuff in the garage and then remodel the house and then build the other 3. I had this all figured out. No problemo. Nope, I cannot do that because the garage is on a separate lot. I can't touch that garage because there's not they call it a principal, meaning there's not a house on that lot with the garage. I have to have a house on that lot. I have to have a principal on that lot. I can also have at least permitted building plans. So it shows I am building the house. Or I can consolidate the 2 lots into one and then have the main house as the principal, which I don't want to do. That'd be silly. You know, to talk about decreasing the value of property.
Right. Plus, you are adding a house on that other piece of property, so it makes sense anyways.
It is, but
that changes up the way you're going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So once again, right, homeowner expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was the contractor, all of a sudden coming back and telling the homeowner, well, guess what? You know, the homeowner would be, oh, are you kidding me? Blah, blah, blah. Why didn't you tell me that? Blah, blah. So I'm the homeowner learning, understanding, and sometimes I'm pushing back a little bit. I'm pushing back on stuff, you know. I didn't know what a no-cut list was, you know, for a street. I didn't know what that was about. You know, it's like when you pave a road. I don't know what Multnomah is, but out in McMinnville, if you pave a road, it's on the no-cut list for 5 years. And if you want to cut into that, say for a new sewer or a new water line, it costs 3 to 4 times the amount that it would normally if it was a road that wasn't cut.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Yeah. So when I started researching this, going, okay, because, you know, will this one sewer accommodate these multiple other structures? Am I going to have another water line? And then they said, well, your road's on a no-cut list. And I didn't even know what that meant. What are you talking about? And then can you please explain to me what that is? And then they tell me. And then I go, is there any questions I'm not asking? Because I don't know, because this is new to me. And he said, well, yes, there's a time frame that streets are on, how long they are on a cut list. I said, okay. I had to ask like 20 questions.
Yeah.
And how
because
long?
It's just not helpful.
Yeah. How long is my street on the no cut list? He goes, 5 years. Oh.
How long
has it been on? 2018. Oh, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20. Oh, well, this is 23. So, and then he's like, you're absolutely right. I didn't even think about that. And I hear him just goes, yeah, I guess
you're in the clear.
I'm in the clear in like 2 months. It's after 2 months, I'll be past the 5-year mark on the no cut list. But once again, like asking and even saying, I don't know, I don't understand the lingo, or I don't understand the process. Can you slow down? Can you, educate me?
Yeah, that can be daunting. I'll tell you.
It is. Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, we're documenting this, guys, right? We're keeping it real. And there, I'm sure I'll make mistakes. I'm sure there's going to be delays, and a lot of that's going to be out of our hands. But that's typical.
Yep.
That is so,
that's right.
That's typical.
2 really good descriptive words of DIYing, being your own contractor, being your own general, taking on a project like this. It's 2 very descriptive words. 1, it's very rewarding. 2, it's also humbling.
Oh, yeah.
It's humbling and it's rewarding.
You got to know when to fold them.
Yeah, that's right.
Know when to walk away.
It's definitely worth doing, but it's not easy. It's not. There is a lot of work, and there's a lot of learning, and there's a lot of concessions that have to be made. And you will be humbled, but you'll also be rewarded.
Once you're not afraid to make mistakes, and, just work through it, then you're good.
Right.
That's what you just got to learn. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from them.
Corey, you just hit a word right there, fear. A lot of people won't do a remodel or a new build or even move because they're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid to do it. I don't know what's going to happen and everything. And it's okay to be afraid. And even this process, like I'm remodeling one house and doing this garage and 3 other homes. I've never done it to this caliber before. But I have one-on-one. So if you start to think of it as this big picture and get overwhelmed, slow down, go back to the beginning, and just one step at a time.
That's good.
And it's okay to be shaken in your boots. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I'll tell you what, this show is going long, so.
Yeah, it is going long, but I'll tell you what, this is going to be really good.
I know. I can't wait to come out. We're actually coming out in a couple of weeks. We're going to be checking out this project. So,
yeah, I'm really glad we got a chance to get together and do sort of a preface and talk a little bit about what's coming up. But be sure and check out what's happening with the Weekend Warriors in Shannon, Quimby. You're going to be able to find that on our YouTube channel, which is at WW Home Show.
Yeah, it's not as easy as that. You actually have to search. I'm trying to figure this out.
YouTube.com/WW Home Show.
If anybody's listening and they're a YouTube person that knows how to YouTube, will you email me? It's weekendwarriors@parr.com. Email me and tell me how to make it so where when I search WW Home Show, our channel comes up. It doesn't.
Well, if you type into the email address, into the address bar, youtube.com/WW Home Show. It comes up.
That is correct.
That is that's our name of our channel.
Yeah, that is true. But when you go to YouTube and search WW Home Show in the search engine, it won't bring our show.
Really?
It's kind of weird. I don't know.
I guess I haven't tried it.
I don't know why, or I don't know how to fix it. I'm not a YouTube person. I'm a lumber guy. But anyway, it's going to be on there. Our Instagram is at WW Home Show. Shannon's, you have an Instagram?
Yes, Shannon Quimby.
Shannon Quimby. So
ShannonQuimby.com.
That's it.
Go check out her stuff. Check out our stuff.
Quimby.
Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're doing this show every week. We're doing lots and lots of YouTube videos. We're going to have a ton of videos coming out of this project in McMinnville. So if you're interested in that, make sure you go like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Anyway,
yes, Shannon,
that's about
thank
it
you
for
so
today.
much again for being with us. It was a really good time. And we will be back together again very soon.
Yeah, we're going to have a blast.
We're going to have a blast.
All right, we'll see you next time.
All right, bye. Why did I say bye?
I don't know.
They just did it good. Bye.
See ya.
See ya.